Hi, we're back again, and we're continuing with the record of the orally transmitted teachings translated by Burton Watson. We're now on page 166. We're getting ready to read the Supernatural Powers chapter. Do understand this is when the Bodhisattvas of the earth split, so this is kind of, in terms of a direct relation, this is a culminating chapter, actually. Okay, so the chapter 21, Supernatural Powers of the Thus Come One, 8 important points on page 166 in the middle. Point 1, concerning the supernatural powers, Jinriki of, pardon me, I want to get this open because I'm going to be referring to it. All right, chapter 21, Supernatural Powers of the Thus Come One, 8 important points. Point 1, concerning the supernatural powers, Jinriki of the Thus Come One Myoho Rengekyo. The Thus Come One Myoho Rengekyo. All right? Now you got to go back to point 1, where he's explaining the title of honor, the Nam Myoho Rengekyo Thus Come One. All right? Do you remember that? We're all Nam Myoho. We're not just Buddhas of some previous unrelated circumstance. We're the actual bodhisattvas of the earth that are described theoretically in the emerging from the earth chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Okay, the people that came up out of the dirt. No. That isn't really how human beings manifest. Okay, that's all metaphorical. The treasure tower, everything's metaphorical. Now we're the real reality of the substance of what's preached and prophesied in those chapters. Point 1, concerning the supernatural powers of the Thus Come One Myoho Rengekyo. My supernatural powers, all right? Words and Phrases, Volume 10, Tentai says, what the Thus Come One has already been explained in chapter 1, or pardon me, in point 1 of chapter 16, excuse me, point 1 of chapter 16, important point 1 of chapter 16. The Thus Come One has already been explained, it says parenthetically. So it's from the lifespan chapter, the lifespan of the Thus Come One, Nam Myoho Rengekyo, point 1. It explains all of that. That's where it also discusses and codifies the 6 stages of practice, frankly, as well. The reality of how one transforms from a Buddha in theory into being a Buddha in actuality. So that's all right there if you want to go back and check it out. We've already discussed it. This is a deeper level. We're now launching off, okay? The Thus Come One has already been explained. The word jin, or supernatural, means that which is unfathomable. Okay, so like myoho is unfathomable. The mystic law is not something that you can just figure out with your head. Even if you're a Buddha, you can only perceive the truth of it. You cannot conceive of the reality of the entire universe. You're not thinking about other planets and all that kind of stuff, right? You're still anchored in the Saha world, all right? The word jin, or supernatural, means that which is unfathomable. And the word riki, or powers, refers to the vital or essential activity. Our manifest form in the 9 worlds, functioning as living beings in the realm of the other unenlightened living beings, striving to, out of pity and compassion, to make all of them equal to ourselves. Okay, so that which is unfathomable is the profoundness of the eternal and inherent entity. Now, the eternal inherent entity is all living beings are that, because we're all eternally endowed with the 3 bodies. That's the eternal and inherent entity, the 3 bodies. Inherent entity is the aspects of our lives that come forth as we manifest Buddhahood and go from being a common mortal to being a Thus Come One. All right, through Nam Myoho Rengekyo. That's why we get the title of honor of being Nam Myoho Rengekyo Thus Come Ones. Okay, while the vital activity is the magnitude of the power that causes the changes in the phenomenal world. The change that we create, the causes that we make that create the changes in the phenomenal world, is to turn the Sahe world, the world of suffering and endurance into the Buddha land. It's called achieving Kosen Rufu, is what he's talking about here, actually. In this chapter, because the profound doctrines of the Buddha are entrusted to others, in the chapter of the Lotus Sutra, he does all kinds of weird, supernatural stuff like, his long, broad tongue extends to the Brahma heaven. He shoots beams of light out of the pores of in between his eyes. All the kinds of things. If you go back to the Lotus Sutra and you read the supernatural powers chapter, it's all kind of spooky, weird stuff that would never happen in the phenomenal realm that we know is the real world. Okay, it's all metaphorical. Okay, so he's going to explain why the metaphor here now. All right, in this chapter, because the profound doctrines which are unfathomable of the Buddha are entrusted to others, he displays his 10 great powers beforehand to show them, I'm all that in a bag of chips. I'm really something special here. I am a Buddha. I am a thus come one. That is why the chapter is entitled Supernatural Powers. Okay, so that's the Supernatural Powers chapter. This is Supernatural Powers of the thus come one. All right. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, now let's bring it down to earth in the realm of existence that we all actually manifest in. He says, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says, Nichiren says, this Myoho Rengekyo, this teaching of the simultaneity of cause and effect, all right, and devotion to it, is not the wonderful law of Shakyamuni Buddha. Okay, because Shakyamuni Buddha is speaking in terms of metaphors and a time that is prior to the 5th 500-year period when the Great Pure Law appears and so forth, okay? So this is all about bringing that into now. Because when the action of this chapter takes place, the essence of the sutra, which is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, has already been transmitted or entrusted to the Bodhisattva superior practices, which is the identity that the Daishonin takes on so that he doesn't disparage or diminish Shakyamuni as being, a great teacher that left this wonderful work called the Lotus Sutra through the process of many other teachers in between, finally getting to Tentai and then being manifest as the Makashikan, which led to the revelations by Chang'an, Myolo, Dengyo, and that's what led the Daishonin to be able to perceive what he perceived as Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay, so without all of that whole continuity, that's what allows it all to actually occur in reality. All right, so he says, because when the action of this chapter takes place, the essence of the sutra has already been transmitted or entrusted to the Bodhisattva superior practices. Now, when we get to that, chapter 15, the emerging from the earth chapter, that Daishonin qualifies that superior practice is an aspect of 4 types of aspects, which could be attributed to any number of individuals, okay? But for the sake of this teaching, he takes on the identity of superior practices because superior practices is the leader of the bodhisattvas of the earth. So if all of us that chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are bodhisattvas of the earth in the latter day, then the Daishonin as the original teacher is the entity or the aspect represented by the Bodhisattva never disparaging, the Bodhisattva superior practices in the Emerging from the Earth chapter. Generally speaking, regarding the entrustment of Myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, to the Bodhisattva, the ceremony for entrustment begins in the Treasure Tower chapter, at the beginning of the ceremony in the air. That's when all of this actually starts to manifest, because that's what relates to us in chapter 11. And that's where I'm going to get 2 of the references here for, because he's already qualifying as from the chapter that begins in the Treasure Tower chapter. The entity to be entrusted becomes apparent in the Lifespan chapter. Who is it transferred to? It's transferred to The Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come one, and if we all manifest with the pure state of conviction as disciples of Nichiren, we also take on the title of honor of being Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come ones. And because why? We also manifest our eternally endowed three bodies. We manifest the Dharma body, the reward body, and the manifested body that allow us to go through the 6 stages of practice and show the way for the common mortals of the 9 worlds to become Buddhas of the 10th world. All right? Okay, and so he says that's from chapter 16. The entity to be entrusted becomes apparent in the lifespan chapter. You remember what he's talking about there. That's why I said you go to point 1. This is all spelled out. And the ceremony comes to an end in the supernatural powers, what I'm reading here. This is when the bodhisattvas of the earth split. They've already been entrusted with Nam-myoho Renge, with the essence of the law that creates the equality of Buddhas throughout the 10 directions in the 3 existences. All right, and entrustment, okay, and the ceremony comes to an end in the supernatural powers chapter and entrustment chapters, chapter 21 and 22. And of course, the entrustment, which is going to follow this chapter, is the teaching that is in the Lotus Sutra for the disciples of Shakyamuni that appear in the former and the middle day of the law, like Tentai, like Dengyo, like Nagarjuna, like all those Buddhas, actually, that helped manifest the teaching that finally got to Kumarajiva and then got translated into Chinese and then got to Tentai and the whole lineage that I just spoke of before that led to Nichiren's perception and enlightenment of the original state. Okay, Kuan. The thus come one is the thus come one of the lifespan chapter. Okay, and the supernatural, us, all, the living beings of the Dharma realm, and the supernatural powers are the 10 supernatural powers possessed by a Buddha. Essentially, the 5 characters that make up Myoho Renge-kyo are the supernatural gene entity that is unfathomable. Because you can't perceive, it's unfathomable that we're eternal, all right? But we are, all right? And the powers, Ricky, the cause that changes, okay? The cause that changes is going from being a Buddha in theory, to being the 6th stage of a Buddha in reality, the 6th stage of practice, okay? A Buddha of the Dharma body. The supernatural powers are the same as those referred to in the lifespan chapter that speaks of the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. They're nothing more, as is described in chapter, in important point 2, it's nothing more than the fact that we're alive and we have a mind. And we're in this. We've manifested in the Sahe world, and we have the potential then to utilize the teaching that is unfathomable, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, to become Buddhas in our present form, to hit that 6th stage of practice. That's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. He says, okay, they are the Daimoku, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, that Nichiren and his followers are now chanting. So let me read that again. These supernatural powers are the same as those referred to in the passage of the lifespan chapter that speaks of the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. They are the Daimoku, which is exactly what we are. We are Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, okay? And they are the Daimoku Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that Nichiren and his followers, only the followers of Nichiren, know about this. That's why we want to make everybody equal to ourselves by opening the door, by exposing them to go from being Buddhists in theory to hearing the name and the words of the truth. Name and the words of the truth is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. They are the Daimoku Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that Nichiren and his followers are now chanting. These 10 supernatural powers apply both to the time when the Buddha is in the world and after his extinction, after Shakyamuni's gone, after Nichiren's gone, after I'm gone. This will continue to be the fundamental premise of life itself on into the infinite future. But in a deeper sense, you should understand that all 10 powers are in fact limited to the time after its extinction, because it's not until after Shakyamuni has passed or after the Daishonin has passed that Kosen Rufu actually occurs. Okay, the widespread propagation doesn't happen in the lifetime of the Thus Come One that reveals it. It comes in the function, the causes of change that he talked about. The cause of the cause changes, the powers change the phenomenal realm of the Sahe world, of the Saha world, into the Buddha land. All right. Again, we may say that this chapter deals with the powers Riki of the Thus Come One Myoho Rengekyo and the deities. The Thus Come One refers to all living beings. It says it right here. He's qualifying that it's everybody, as has already been explained in the section in the lifespan chapter. Because if you remember the lifespan chapter, it's all explained there. Hence, Tiantai in his commentary says that he has already explained the meaning of the term "Thus Come One," because it starts out with an explanation from words and phrases in important point 1, if you can remember that. The deities are the 7 shrines of the Mountain King of Mount Hiei. You should reflect carefully on what this means. And I've reflected on it, and I couldn't come up with something. And then I thought, Mountain King, now I get it. It's not the 7 shrines of the Mountain King. The 7 shrines represent the 7 jewels of the treasure tower. So let's real quick go to that. I can't believe this just screwed up again, turned off on its own. All right, so what is the Mountain King? The guardian deity of Enrakuji Temple, okay, which is where Dengyo did his thing in Japan. The head temple of the Tendai school in Japan. Hiei shrine in the foot of Mount Hiei. It has been dedicated to the god Mountain King since the time of Dengyo, the founder of Enrakuji. Okay, so he said you can't find anything on the 7 shrines that were there, because the 7 shrines got destroyed by conflicts that occurred, and they don't exist at that site anymore. I looked all of this up, but then it occurred to me, this whole thing started with the treasure tower chapter. What are the 7 jewels? Okay, we're not all gems or gemstones, right? So what is the real? He said that Daishonin says the record on point 2. Let me just read point 1 and point 2. Point 1, concerning the treasure tower. Words and phrases, volume 8 says, the former Buddha, many treasures, is already there in the tower. The present Buddha, Shakyamuni, seats himself beside him. Future Buddhas will do so likewise. Now, understand that the Daishonin has already clarified in this teaching that the Shakyamuni is in your mind, and many treasures is in your mind. Our minds themselves that perceive the truth are the representations of those 2 Buddhas. It's our Buddha nature is what those 2 combine to in reality. They don't actually combine. It's our manifest form. It's our Dharma body, all right? So he says the record of it, the Daishonin clarifies that by saying the word treasure stands for the 5 components of life, form, perception, conception, volition, and consciousness. So the living beings of the Dharma realm who are originally endowed with the 3 bodies, eternally endowed with the 3 bodies. Okay, the word tower stands for the harmony and combination of the 5 components. Okay, those of us that are able to attain Buddhahood in our present form. The 5 components functioning in harmony is designated as a treasure tower. We are the treasure tower. Our very body is the treasure tower. It's not just the Gohonzon that we chant to. The Gohonzon that we chant to is a mirror for us to be able to perceive the truth of the fact that we are the Gohonzon. Okay? We are that perfection. All right? And that the entire phenomenal realm, the entire Dharma realm exists within our lives. The harmony of the 5 components emerges or is seen in the 5 characters of Myoho Rengekyo. The Nam-myoho Rengekyo, Thus Come One. This is the meaning of the words ken, to emerge or to be seen, to emerge from being a Buddha in theory to being a Buddha in actuality. Okay, now Nietzsche and his followers who chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo exemplify the emergence of the treasure tower, because that's what it is. Our Buddha nature comes forth in the sixth stage. We become Buddhas in our present form. We qualify as Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, thus come ones, which means we are Buddhas. Okay, and that's what he's qualified. That's the emergence he's talking about, is going from stage 1 to stage 6 within a single lifetime, or within any number of lifetimes that it takes to get to stage 6. But the important point is stage 2. Are we jewels? No, we're not jewels. This is what it says. It goes straight into point 2 on the 7 treasures in the passage. And he just talked about there the 7 shrines, okay? And I'm sure that each one of those shrines had something to do with the 7 treasures of the treasure tower. And they're given specific lapis lazuli and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, but the Daishonin requalifies, and the 7 treasures are hearing, as in hearing this law, belief, keeping the precepts, meditation, diligence, abandoning of attachment to earthly desires, and a sense of shame or reflecting on oneself. Because that's how we go forward and realize we have to get to stage 6. We don't keep messing around in the kindergarten stage of, I want this or I want that or help me out. We don't preach, we don't pray to something outside of ourselves. We begin to understand and manifest the power within our own life to be knowing that when we're embracing the Gohonzon, we're bringing out the Gohonzon of our life. It's not something that's coming from something that we're doing outside of ourselves. We're emerging, okay? That's what he was just talking about. So I'll go over those again. The 7 treasures are hearing, as in hearing the law. That's going from being Buddha in theory to being, hearing the name of the truth. Belief, which is the 2nd stage. Keeping the precepts, meditation, diligence, abandoning of attachment to earthly desires, and a sense of shame or reflecting on oneself. Or again, we may say that they are the 7 openings of the head, the eyes, the ears, the nostrils, and the mouth. Now, Nietzsche and his followers who chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo are practitioners adorned with the 7 treasures. So that's what the whole deal about the 7 treasures in point 1 of the supernatural powers. I almost guarantee that's what he's talking about. That it's not about Mountain King and Mountain Hay. He said, you should reflect carefully on what this means. I've been doing it for years, and it only happened a little bit before I started talking. I just happened to have the treasure tower opened, and there it was, point 2, and I went, oh my goodness. And I thought about, Mountain King, why don't I look that up instead of trying to find the 7 shrines? That's how this all works. It emerges through your desire for it to emerge. It doesn't happen by accident. It's not on autopilot. You got to be seeking it for it to manifest. All right? So going on to point 2. That was a long explanation in point 1. Sorry. Point 2, page 167. Point 2, concerning the long, broad tongue of the Buddha in the passage, he extended his long, broad tongue up till it reached the Brahma heaven, one of the 10 supernatural powers that he expressed in the supernatural power of the Lotus Sutra, okay, metaphorically. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the word broad refers to the theoretical teaching. Now, what is he talking about? The theoretical teaching, he's talking about the first 14 chapters of the Lotus Sutra? No, he's talking about all teachings that preceded Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Okay, that's the theoretical teaching. And the word long refers to the essential teaching. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is the essential teaching. The word tongue refers to the middle way or the Dharma nature. That's Buddhahood. Okay? Because the wonderful law brings enduring benefits to all living beings of the 10 worlds. Okay, to all living beings of the 10 worlds. Why? Because Kosen Rufu can occur thanks to this emergence of the wonderful law. So I'll say it again. Because the wonderful law brings enduring benefits to all living beings of the 10 worlds get to participate in the kudoku, the merit of the Sahe world being transformed into the Buddha land, Kosen Rufu. Right? It is characterized spatially as broad and temporally long. Again, broad may be taken to refer to the wonderful law as it has existed since major world system dust particle kalpas ago. Now that would have been back in the time of great universal wisdom excellence with his 16 sons, of which Shakyamuni is one of them. Okay, when Shakyamuni and his 15 other brothers all started practicing the Bodhisattva way. That's why, again, what's being transferred is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. All Buddhas attain Buddhahood through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay, so the wonderful law. So again, even Shakyamuni, though he's not revealing it as Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, attained Buddhahood that way. All Buddhas attain their Buddhahood. That's why they all rejoice when we do what we do in the Saha world now with Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay, so again, what he's saying, again, broad may be taken to the wonderful law since it existed since major world system dust particle kalpas ago, Sanzen Jintingo, while long may be taken to refer to the wonderful law as it has existed since numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago. Goyaku Jintingo, Kuon actually is what he's referring to. Okay, he's talking about beginningless time. The wonderful law has existed since the beginningless point, all of us. If we're eternal, then we're also beginningless. There's not a separating point between us and this point. There's not a separation between us and Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. We're both, everything in the Dharma realm is eternal. That means it's beginningless. All right? So, all these ways of looking at the matter, because these are all perspectives of wisdom, frankly, refer alike to the Buddha's long, broad tongue. They all these aspects refer to the depth and the unfathomable truth of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the essential nature of all things. Okay? Going on point 3 on 168. Regarding the passage, and from all his pores he emitted immeasurable countless beams of light that illuminated all the worlds in the 10 directions. It wasn't just the tuft of hair between his eyes. The other Buddhas from the ceremony in the air, seated on lion seats underneath the numerous jeweled trees, because all of this is occurring during the ceremony in the air. The ceremony in the air started in the Treasure Tower chapter, and it's been continuing the whole time I've been reading everything. All right? The other Buddhas seated on lion seats underneath the numerous jeweled trees did likewise. Now, what are the jeweled trees? The jeweled trees also are trees with the 7 kinds of gems from the Treasure Tower is adorned with. Okay, so it's the same aspects of life, of existence, of perception and volition that manifest as you seek to become a Buddha in your present form. All right? He says, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says that's why the Buddhas are sitting on these seats, because this is how they got there. All right? The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the words 10 directions refer to the 10 worlds. So this applies to everybody, even if they're in hell, or they're hungry spirits, or animals, or whatever, okay, all the way up to the Buddha, all right? The passage makes clear that plants and trees, too, are able to attain Buddhahood. Why? Because they're part of the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. The realm of the environment is part of the reality that we experience, and it reflects us. It reflects us. It doesn't have mind, but it reflects our mind. When we turn the Saha world, into a Buddha land, the environment, and everything in it that's also part of the environment, sentient versus insentient, okay, also are able to attain Buddhahood. The word shishi, or lion, is made up of 2 elements. The first shi, which can be taken to mean teacher, and the second shi, which can be taken to mean a disciple. The lion seats represent the land of eternally tranquil light. Okay, Buddhahood, because Buddhahood is what turns wherever you're at into the land of eternally tranquil light, the Buddha land. That is, the lands of the 10 worlds in their original state are none other than lands of eternally tranquil light. In other words, he's saying no point of manifestation, the point of where you're existing in the world. The Saha world is always and has always been in its original state. Just like in our original state, we're eternally endowed with the three bodies. The land is also the land of eternally tranquil light. That's the end of point 3. We'll stop there and continue on point 4 when we come back next time. Thank you.